Good evening, everybody. Welcome on behalf of the Indian section for our Friday evening study class of the Mahatma Letters. Before beginning, let's all join together in the universal invocation. O hidden life, vibrant in every atom. O hidden light, shining in every creature. O hidden love, embracing all in oneness. May each who feels himself as one with thee know he's also one with every other. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. And we continue our Letters of the Masters of Wisdom series, series 2, Vibhaji's explanations of letters 19 to 25. Yes, Vibhaji, please start.
Thank you, Vimalji, and namaste, good evening, dear brothers and sisters. So, we have been taking the study from Letters from Masters of Wisdom, Series 2. And we started with the study of letter number 19, and we'll go up to letter number 25. Now, in our last session, we have completed up to letter number 23. I will share my slides with you and we will do a brief recap of the last letter. That was this letter 23. So, this letter is basically from Master Serapis to Colonel Olcott. We have seen that already. And it is in this letter, Master has given some advice to Colonel Olcott. So in this letter, he has taken 3 sentences from the Dhammapadam and 1 from the Sutras. And this advice that he has given, it must be followed daily. It must be observed by the aspirants, by the sadhaks every day. So what he said in the first statement was that a person who stands by silently and who hears his brother being uh, criticized, abusively criticized. He uses the word being reviled and he stands silently. So it means he is implicitly agreeing with the enemy. And such a person, he is not qualified to be a companion on the spiritual path. Because such a person, he lacks courage. He lacks a show of courage to defend his brother. And he is displaying selfishness. And these two qualities, courage and selflessness, these are two important qualities on the spiritual path. So, such a person, Master says, is not fit to be a companion on the spiritual path. Then, in the next advice, Master has emphasized the unity of the group, that is, the group of aspirants or the group of disciples, and their mutual responsibility towards each other in the group. Every member is responsible to avoid and to prevent negative states of any other member. Okay. So, and so any person who's having any negative state of mind or a negative quality which is coming up, the other members have to take the responsibility to prevent this or to abort this kind of quality. Now, this is the necessary quality of a true companion. He has to look after the progress, spiritual progress, welfare of his fellow companions also. And if one cannot do this, then he is not ready to become a brother. He is not ready to become a master of wisdom and compassion. That is the meaning of to be a brother. So, we completed that in the previous session, and now we come to the third advice. So, in this sutra, Master mentions it is easy to destroy the poisonous huaba in its first germination. Huaba could probably be reference to some kind of a poisonous plant. He says it is difficult to arrest its progress when once allowed to mature. Its unhealthy emanations will fill the atmosphere with miasms, Miasms means a cloud of false or foul smelling vapor, foul smelling gas, a cloud of that. That is the meaning of miasms. It will spread and infect its healthy brethren and cause the limpid waters of the lake to stagnate and dry. Limpid waters are pure and crystalline waters of the lake. So, this is a metaphorical reference to the group of aspirants. Now, in this case, it is referring to the newly formed Theosophical Society, okay, of which Madame Blavatsky and Colonel Olcott were the founders. So, this is a metaphorical reference to that group of people who have come together forming this society. And such a organization, to progress on the spiritual path, they practice purity, especially mental purity. So, mind is being compared to the crystal clear waters of the lake. And miasms is the evil influence due to corruption of even a single member. Corruption, like we said previously, seeking revenge. Okay. So, such kind of corruption, it pollutes the spiritual atmosphere for the whole group and it can corrupt all the members. So, Master says, avoid the huaba and its husbandman beloved. Master is advising Colonel Olcott. He's addressing Colonel Olcott as beloved. He's a very dear person. Master advises him to avoid such evil influence and the one who allows or nurtures it to grow. That is the husbandman, the person who allows it to grow, who nurtures it. So it is the duty of each member in the group, in the organization, to help his companion practice virtues of the spiritual path. Colonel Olcott, he was the president, the first president of the Theosophical Society, and Master is stressing the importance of unity in the society and the mutual responsibility which each member owed to the other members. And then lastly, Master says, it is as difficult to become a Buddha as to find the flowers of Udumbara and Palash along the highway. It is easy to try and even follow the path of Buddha. Translation correct. Serapis. Now, in the Buddhist tradition, Udumbara is an auspicious flower. It is considered a flower from heaven and it is said to bloom only once in every 3,000 years. It, it blooms generally when there is the arrival of a holy king. So, it's a very, very rare flower. And Palash also refers to a type of flower which stands for beauty, vitality, flourishing life. Okay. So, Master says it is difficult to become a Buddha just as it is difficult to find these flowers. They are so rare. But it is easy to try. So, try is the one word given by the masters to all aspirants. One should always try. Put in self effort for treading the path. See, Master can show you the path, but you have to tread on it by putting self effort with patience and perseverance. That is the meaning, to try. Even if you fail 100 times, doesn't matter. That is not failure. If you try again, then that is not failure because the next try might be a success. Okay. So the path of Buddha, you have to try and you have to tread the path of Buddha. That is easy. To tread the path of Buddha. That is the Noble Eightfold Path. This helps to live a moral life. It helps to develop inner peace. When you try, when you walk on that path, then you are able to live a moral life. You are able to develop inner peace. And this eventually will lead to the end of suffering and achieving enlightenment. So, achieving enlightenment, that is the meaning to become a Buddha. Now, we all know very well the Noble Eightfold Path. There are 8 practices and they are grouped into 3 main categories. Very quickly, let me tell you the 3 main categories of those 8 steps, that is wisdom, ethical conduct, and mental discipline. So, first is wisdom. When you're treading the path, you have to inculcate wisdom. How? Through right understanding and right thought. So, those are the first 2 steps. Next, you inculcate ethical conduct. You practice ethical conduct through right speech, right action, and right livelihood. So, all your actions have to be righteous. And lastly, your mental discipline is what you have to practice. So, put in the right effort, mindfulness, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So, these are the 8 steps in this noble eightfold path. And this letter, it was perhaps written by some pupil. So in the last line, Master has confirmed that the translation is correct. And then he has put his signature. So this was the letter number 23. Now, the next letter, that is letter number 24, is from Master Narayan to Colonel Olcott. Now, we have not read or seen very many letters from this Master Narayan. So, but we will, there is a description about who he was. And this is given in a foreword given by C. Jinraj Das. So in this foreword to the letter 24, C. Jinraj Das has written that among the many adepts who used HPB's body when she was writing Isis Unveiled and the Secret Doctrine is one who was called the Old Gentleman. So this is a fact. I don't know how many people know it, but this is a fact that the contents of ISIS Unveiled and Secret Doctrine, they were not the product of Madame Blavatsky's intellect alone. Okay, it was a collective work of the masters and Madame Blavatsky. Often, very often, the higher principles of some master would overshadow that of HPB. And then this is how through her, this great ancient wisdom, it was brought to light. Now, one of the masters who collaborated in this way was Master Narayan. And in the forward, it is mentioned that HPB's diary of 1878. So, Madame Blavatsky maintained a diary, and in that diary, several times she has referred to this Master Narayan, either by his name, that is by Narayan, or by a symbol which he used for his signature. The letter which is given, this letter which is number 24, it is the only one in this adept's script, that is Master Narayan's script. HPB writes at the bottom of the letter in blue pencil, and it is very faint. It's a very faint reproduction. She writes, "The old gentleman, your Narayan." So we know for sure that this letter is from this adept. Now the description of the letter is given like that. The letter is written in red pencil. The incident to which the letter is referring, that is nowhere recorded. Okay, that is not given or known. Now, the Master Narayan, he was living in 1885, not far from Madras, that is the present day Chennai. Okay, and at that time, T. Subbarao and C.W. Leadbeater, they went to visit him. So, what is the context of this? A letter to the Theosophist. The Theosophist was the magazine through which the communication with the outer world happened, and many times masters would also have their articles published through Madame Blavatsky. So, a letter to the Theosophist from this Master Narayan in 1882. And what that letter contained? It refuted the accusations against the founders of Swami Dayanand Saraswati of the Arya Samaj. That letter, it appeared in the June supplement of the Theosophist in 1882. Okay, so Swami Dayanand Saraswati, who was the founder of Arya Samaj, he had made some accusations against the founders. And Master Narayan, he refuted those accusations. So that letter, refuting the accusations, it was printed in the Theosophist. It is dated Tiruvallam Hills, May 17, and signed one of the Hindu founders of the parent Theosophical Society. Now it appears strange, no? Why Master will sign it as one of the Hindu founders. So we'll get to that context, what it means. See, in the early period of the Theosophical Society, that is 1878 to 1881, There was correspondence between Colonel Olcott and Swami Dayanand Saraswati. It was suggested to unite the two organizations, that is, Theosophical Society and the Arya Samaj, as they had common goals. Okay, philosophy was common. But later there was a split. There were differences in thought. There was a split which occurred due to some fundamental disagreements. Now, several accusations were leveled on the founders, Colonel Olcott and Madame Blavatsky. They having converted to Buddhism and promoting Buddhism as superior. Okay, this was one of the factors. Now, it seems to emphasize that Theosophical Society was not here to promote Buddhism or to portray it as superior. Master Narayanan specifically signs this letter as one of the Hindu founders because he's not Buddhist. Okay, so he's saying that he's a Hindu founder of the parent Theosophical Society, and he refuted these accusations which were made against the founders in this letter, in his letter which got published in the Theosophist. Now, it actually, if you go to that magazine, all the old magazines, the Theosophists, they are available online in the Adyar website resources. Okay, so you can actually see this edition and you find this letter of Master Narayan in that. And it appears that in this same context, the current letter, that is letter number 24, it was written by Master Narayan to Colonel Olcott. Okay, so that was the reason that this letter, which was dated 17th May and address was given as Tiruvallam Hills, and then Master signed it. So what he writes in this letter, he writes to Colonel Olcott, "You may and ought to be kind to and lenient with an insane person. But not even for the sake of such a kindness have you the right to keep back your religion and allow him even for one twinkling of the eye to believe you are a Christian or that you may be one." So, once again, see in the foreword, it is written that the incident to which this letter is referring is not recorded anywhere. But given the date and the time and what was written in the letter in the Theosophist, it is a possible reference. What Master is writing here, it is a possible reference to the most unreasonable charges which were leveled on the founders of the Theosophical Society by the founder of the Arya Samaj. Earlier, they wanted to collaborate, but there was this split. And when this they decided to split, so then Swami Dayanand, he went on to criticize the founders and accuse them of these false things. Now, in spite of these accusations and the split and the rift between them, Master Narayan agrees with Colonel Olcott to be kind and lenient towards him. But kindness does not mean not to correct the misunderstanding of the other person. So, Master is pointing out to Colonel Olcott the gross error in not disclosing the religion of the founders, if at all. He doesn't know if that is the case, but if at all that was the case, then that is a gross error. And allowing the founder of Arya Samaj to believe that the TS founders were Christians. And so this with this kind of understanding, they were proceeding with the alliance of the two societies. You see what a kind of misunderstanding. Now, now again, going back to that Theosophist of June 1882, if you go and read that, there is a footnote given by the editor. The editor was Madame Blavatsky. So, Master Narayan's letter got published in that, and then Madame Blavatsky has written a footnote where she has stated that the rupture of the Swami, that is Swami Dayanand, the rupture of the Swami with us resulted not because of our holding to one religion or the other, but because of the strict policy of eclectic tolerance for men of all creeds, upon which the Theosophical Society was founded and has since been building itself up. Okay, so that is one of the main principles of Theosophical Society, that it is open to all people without any restrictions of caste, creed, colors, race, sex, anything. So this was the main point of rift. Okay, not the religion to which Madame Blavatsky or Colonel Olcott had converted. So, Master closes this letter saying, you have to make once forever your choice, either your duty to the lodge or your own personal ideas. So, this is a very important point to observe. Each member should examine his own behavior in this light. First of all, every person is free to choose whatever he wants to follow, either the ideals of the lodge and work for the cause of the Theosophical Society, or he may choose to continue to follow his own personal ideas. Personal ideas may be influenced by the dogmas of his religion. Okay, but once having made the choice to work for the lodge, then he cannot perform actions which are contrary to the ideals of the lodge. That is a breach of duty to the lodge, and every member must keep this in mind. Okay? And at the end, we find the master's signature in script. Now, this is a picture of that letter number 24 in the master's handwriting, the letter which we just discussed, this one. Okay, you may and ought to be kind. So, Master Narayan's letter. This is the actual print of it. Then, with this, we come to the last letter 25. And in this letter also, there is a foreword by C. Jinraj Das. He writes, the letter to Colonel Olcott, letter 3 from the Brotherhood of Luxor, is signed by Tuitit Bey. He is mentioned several times by HPB, and I believe she traveled with him in Egypt during her early wanderings. There is one letter of HPB to Colonel Olcott, at the bottom of which appears in bold writing, approved Tutit Bey. So Tutit Bey, he was actually one of the high adepts who belonged to the Egyptian section of this Adept Brotherhood of Luxor. And he was also deeply involved in the founding of the Theosophical Society, especially during its early days. So Jinraj Das Ji, he writes that Master Tutit Bey, he used sometimes a striking seal which is stamped in black. That was shown in letter number 3. When the founders were passing through the Suez Canal, Colonel Olcott writes in his diary, February 3, 1879, there was an entry in Colonel Olcott's diary. The Venerable T.B., so T.B. Tutit Bey, passing near the canal, sends me his greetings. This is the statement or the entry in the diary. Now, how he sent the greetings, whether it was through a mental thought or precipitated on some chit, or we do not know, but it gives tells us for sure that yes, the masters were in communication with Colonel Olcott and Madame Blavatsky. Now, the short note which I print, meaning C. Jinraj Das, he prints, is cut off from the foot of a letter which no longer exists. From a very slight indication, two dots and a stroke which remain, I should presume that the main letter was from Master Serapis. So the original letter was from Master Serapis, and this, the latter part at the bottom, this was what has been cut and printed here. At its foot appears in a handwriting which I think is Tutit Bey's, the letter which follows. So this letter 25 is in the handwriting of Master Tutit Bey. After the word try, there is a design in black, white, and brown. A small figure with rays encircling the head and some symbols. So we don't have that letter or the symbol, but it is described quite graphically. A design in black, white, and brown. A small figure with rays encircling the head and some symbols. So it could possibly signify some high adept. The letter is not signed but bears the oval seal of Tutit Bey, as in letter 3. So only his seal is there, there's no signature. And from this, we understand that this letter number 25 is from Master Tutit Bey to Colonel Olcott. It's a very short letter, 2 lines here. What he writes is to be published in The Scientist in pamphlet form and sold for the benefit of the paper. Try. Her duty to pay for it, yours to suggest it and help her. So, now what is to be published in The Scientist? Uh, it is mentioned earlier in the foreword that this current letter, it was at the bottom of the letter, which was probably from Master Serapis. Okay, so perhaps the contents of that letter from Master Serapis, they were supposed to be published in The Scientist. Scientist would have been some journal at that time, and it was deemed necessary that this would be for the benefit of the paper. Okay. So every time Master gives us the call to try, the theosophical idea, it has to be spread. Okay. It is not only for us to follow, but we have to also spread it. People, they had to be made aware that such a thing as theosophy exists at that time, 1880s, late 1870s. So in that context, maybe something of what was written in Master Serapis' letter that had to be published. Master says it was Madame Blavatsky's duty to arrange for the funds and to pay for that publishing. And Colonel Olcott's duty was to suggest to her that this thing needs to be published. This article should go to the paper, to the scientist, and he should help her to get it done. So this is how the founders, they were being helped and guided by various adepts at the time of formation of the Theosophical Society and subsequently in its workings. So with that, this letter comes to an end, and also we complete the letters planned for this session. And as Vimalji rightly said, we have completed it very early. So if there is something uh, we would like to discuss or regarding the master's letters, we can do so.
After the Hindi translation.
Yes.
Yes, yes, Sushma ji, please start.
थैंक यू सो मच विभा जी, थैंक यू विमल जी। आज जो हम लोग मास्टर्स लेटर सेरेपीज बे टू एच.एस. ऑलकॉट के द्वारा 16 मई 1876 को लिखा गया था, और इसमें मास्टर धर्म पद के 3 वाक्य तथा पतंजलि योग सूत्र के 1 सूत्र को प्रतिदिन पालन करने का निर्देश देते हैं। लेटर नंबर 23 का अंतिम भाग ये है। मास्टर कहते हैं कि विषाक्त वनस्पति, उस वनस्पति का नाम हुआबा है, कि विषाक्त वनस्पति को उसके प्राथमिक अंकुरण के समय ही नष्ट करना आसान है। इसके परिपक्व होने पर इसकी वृद्धि को अवरुद्ध करना मुश्किल होगा। इसके विषैले उत्सर्जन यानी इमिनेशंस से वातावरण को विषाक्त पदार्थ से भर देंगे, और यह फैलेंगे तो अपने स्वस्थ साथी पौधों को भी संक्रमित कर देंगे। फिर मास्टर कहते हैं कि और जैसे झील के स्वच्छ जल को गतिहीन स्थिर करके सुखा देने का कारण बनेंगे ये विषाक्त वृक्ष, ये पौधे। अतः बंधु, विषाक्त वनस्पति और उसके संरक्षक यानी उसके पालक हस्बैंडमैन से भी दूर रहो। आगे का सूत्र है, मास्टर कहते हैं कि बुद्ध होना उतना ही कठिन है जितना कि राजमार्ग यानी हाईवे के किनारे उदुम्बर वृक्ष, जैसे कि अभी विभाजी ने बताया कि ये बहुत लगभग 3000 साल में ये जो है ये उगता है, और तो कहते हैं उदुम्बर वृक्ष एवं पलाश के फूलों को ढूंढना बहुत मुश्किल है, लेकिन मास्टर कहते हैं कि प्रयास करना सरल है। यहाँ तक कि बुद्ध के मार्ग का अनुसरण करना भी सरल है। अंत में मास्टर कहते हैं अनुवाद सही है, और मास्टर का सिग्नेचर है मास्टर सेरापीस का। पत्र संख्या 24। यह पत्र मास्टर नारायण द्वारा कर्नल ऑलकॉट को लिखा गया था, और यह पत्र थियोसॉफी के इशू 1882 में प्रकाशित हुआ था। मास्टर कहते हैं कि आप किसी विक्षिप्त यानी इंसेन व्यक्ति के प्रति दयालु और उदार हो सकते हैं, और होना भी चाहिए। लेकिन ऐसी दयालुता के लिए भी आपको अपना धर्म छिपाकर रखने का अधिकार नहीं है, और तत्क्षण उसे यह मानने की इजाजत भी नहीं देनी चाहिए कि आप ईसाई हैं या हो सकते हैं। आपको हमेशा के लिए एक बार अपना चुनाव करना होगा। यह तो या तो लॉज यानी सिद्ध संघ के प्रति अपना कर्तव्य पालन करें, या अपने निजी विचारों को प्राथमिकता दें। आपको दोनों में से एक को चुनना होगा। लेटर नंबर 25। यह पत्र मास्टर ट्यूटेड बे ने कर्नल ऑलकॉट को लिखा था। मास्टर पत्र में निर्देश देते हैं कि साइंटिस्ट जर्नल में प्रकाशित होने के लिए पत्रक यानी पैम्पलेट के रूप में उसे छपवाएं और उसे अखबार के लाभ के लिए बेचें। कोशिश करें। इसका भुगतान करना एचपीबी की ड्यूटी है, और सुझाव देना और उनकी मदद करना आपका कर्तव्य है। इस लेटर के अंत में सील अंकित है। ये लेटर यही समाप्त होता है। धन्यवाद।
Thank you so much, Sushma ji. Thank you very much, Vibha ji. So, as suggested by Vibha ji, we are half an hour early and we can open up for talks, additions, discussions, questions. So, any of you would like to add something? Most welcome. Dubal ji. See, as I see, no, as a student, when I would read this type of letter, the first instinct is for me to go back to that letter of Narayan and read it. Because really, the purpose of our study of the Mahatma letters is to develop our intellect. Our intellect develops with silly exercises like this. If you try to read that thing, it is complex to read it, because what he has done is he has analyzed what was different about the Arya Samaj and the theosophic thinking, and then where the conflict has arisen. And what is the reason for that? It is something to, I just briefly looked at it, I didn't see it before. But it's very interesting. And as we see, our main aim is to develop, open our buddhi, eventually our intuitive way of thinking. Before that, the intellect has to be developed. And like, our entire exercise in these studies is really the development of that intellect more than knowing the story. Okay, it's like one aspect of it is we all would know. For example, we know the Mahabharata story, but that story, knowing that story does not give us any value. It is the thinking involved, the understanding involved, the development of our intellect, which is the useful exercise. So I would suggest, like, there is a you like you suggested that one can, all of us who have been part of today's talk, we now know that there is a regent of India, one Master Narayan. He was living in the Nilgiri Hills, as I heard somewhere else said, not here. And he has written a critic in the supplement of this 1882 Theosophist June issue, which is available in IASOP website. If you also just write Theosophist Archives, you will find it. It's good to read that because it's a good mental exercise, and you also learn the some of the basics of theosophy uh, very clearly, like was the concept of Parabrahman and all that, which I just glanced through, but there must be more in it. So this is all I can add to this today's presentation.
Yes, Vimal ji very rightly said that uh, all the contents of the letters, see, these letters, they are, when I study these letters, what my thinking is that these letters are not complicated because they are addressing the situations at that time. So their idea was not to complicate it because they want to convey their point across to the recipient, right? They were trying to help the founders. So why would they unnecessarily complicate the letters? It is our thinking, and the crux of the matter is self transformation. So, as you said, that reading the letters is not enough, but is it helping us to transform our inner nature? That is what is important here. So, irrespective of whatever were the outer situations, now in this case, as the rift between Arya Samaj and TS, and a lot has been mentioned in the Mahatma letters regarding this rift. It was to do with the one of the disciples of Swami Dayanand, that was Harichand Chintamani, and there
Yes.
was also some embezzlement of funds. So
Hmm.
a lot had happened, but that is not our focus. Those are the outer circumstances. What our
Hmm.
focus is that how what are the things we have to imbibe which will help us to transform our inner self so that we can progress or move ahead in the direction if we want to be the disciples of the masters. So that is very
That's
important, I think.
yes. Yes.
And I'm sure uh, s- our participants would also be studying the Mahatma letters. The bulk of teachings is there in Mahatma letters to AP Senate. So if you can read it and reread it, and you can imbibe even a fraction of it, then I think you have met the goal. Is there?
Actually,
Yeah.
I find what I do is that I periodically go back to reading the Mahatma letters.
Mhm.
Now I am in that phase, so I am going back to reading it. And nowadays there is so much. It's so interesting because there is a school of wisdom that was done by U.S. Pandeyji, and what he had done is he had collected only the teaching aspect and covered only the teaching aspect without any of the background stuff. So it was core studies, and it was extremely beautiful. But unfortunately, we are not empowered to share it with everybody. Only those who attended it can see that. They're
Okay.
all on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, let's take up this question by Dubalji. He says, very interesting. By such program, we know different adepts. Any letters to anyone getting nowadays?
Oh, interesting
Question
question.
is asked every
Yes.
from the beginning. These questions have been asked, and uh, Tim Boyd answered it last year. He said in
Hmm.
the convention, he said, "This is I'm asked this so often, and this is my now standard reply." He says that each and every one of you is a letter who's coming.
Wow.
You're all coming.
Yes, yes.
I
That's a
don't think so.
lovely reply.
Yeah, I don't think so. There needs to be because the masters have given enough information and actually so much. And after that, with Krishnamurti's teachings and every teaching is out there. It's up to us to apply it. That's what I feel. That's what. And like people, like you see, the other day, so Shushma ji was discussing this in another group that actually the second objective of the Theosophical Society was the study of the Aryan literature. Initially that was the thing, and then it got transformed into finally I think the seventh or sixth draft, it became the study of comparative religion. The Aryan literature, which you have also studied a lot, Vibhaji, you all this has been being said for thousands of years. Nobody is listening to it. Parabrahm is a concept, is not an entity, it is just a principle, is already been said. That how many of us are willing to accept it and say that is the fact, and no, the murti in the temple is not the fact. None of us are. We are not given up. So it's a very difficult thing. I don't know. The humankind. The masters say that most of humankind in the Mahatma letters is still in the fourth root race. People are fourth root race, last seventh sub race are most of humanity. So obviously, our intellectual mental levels have to come to a higher level so that we become independent of any dependence on religion. We will take some time for that to come. Even if you push it down, it is not. So the masters will, what the masters are doing now is anybody's guess. I'm not sure whether they will think that direct communication with humans will help, because I think what they do is what I sense is that they influence some positive thinking which is already inside you. They encourage that. That's the kind of influence they do. And that you can sense. All of us who are in theosophy for many years can sense this. Something is pushing you to either study something or attend something or go somewhere. You are driven from inside. That for me is the message. It need not be a written message.
True. So, to address Brother Duvalji's question, any letters anyone getting nowadays, our President Tim Boyd's reply is very apt. Each one of us is a letter. Okay. The other thing, if you see that the masters can communicate in any way, it is not necessary through a letter, right? And who is really the master? It is your own higher self. At that level of our higher self, our spiritual self, we are all one. So if there is an intuitive feeling coming through you, how do you not say that it is not from the masters? It is from the masters. Okay. If so, in your inner essence, if you go in, if you shut out this outer stimulus from the outer world, and if you go in, whatever you feel, what you think, what you intuit, is that not coming from the masters? And who is to
Yes.
say that in the Theosophical Society, or even people who are not in the Theosophical Society, how much of this kind of communication they are having with their own higher self? Right? So we need not quantify it by saying that whether we are getting a letter in a material form, a material letter. That is not important. What is important is how much you are opening up to your own inner self, to your own higher self. That is the master, and that is the communication. And as to the work that the masters are doing, the masters don't abandon us, they are always there with us. Have we abandoned them? Are we open to them? That is the question. Okay.
Yeah.
So my uh, advice would be to always go back and look at the constitution of man, the seven principles. That is the single most important thing given to us by the theosophical teachings. We are at the level of mind. Man is a mental creature even now. And that too, his mind is not yet fully unfolded. We are
Mm.
still working with the lower mind. And the work of the masters is to enable us to reach our higher mind, to unfold our intuitive mind, to become illumined. And yet we are in the mental universe. So we have to transcend the mental universe and move to an entirely, or rather, unfold an entirely new state of consciousness, which is higher than the mental consciousness. That is the real
Mm.
work which we have to do. And through all these studies, teachings, that is the only goal. That is what we have to strive for, to reach a level of consciousness which is altogether higher than the mental consciousness.
Yes. Sheetalji, I saw your video on. Would you like to speak now or?
No, I got my answer from Vibhaji. The same question I wanted to ask her. That what do you think on this? So she has already answered. So thanks.
Oh, all right.
Thank you, Sheetalji. So, as far as
Anybody?
Vimalji, you mentioned about speaking the Aryan, the Eastern literature, the Aryan studies. So, if you go back to the secret doctrine, the principles, the seven principles of man, they have been equated to the Panchakosh classification of Vedanta. It is Annamay, Pranamay, Manomay, Vigyanmay, and Anandmay, and also to the three body classification of Tarak Raj Yoga, that is Sthula
Mhm.
Sharir, Sukshma Sharir, and Karan Sharir. And then
Hmm.
Atma is the highest. In all classifications, Atma is the highest principle. So
Okay.
if we understand those, and if we really work to unfold those principles of ours, that is the work or the meaning of all these studies which we are doing, the theosophical studies.
Hmm. Nice. And it is through the intellect only, na? The method is meditation, intellectual work, and service. That SMS thing is the way all three have to be done simultaneously, I think. We can't just do only meditation all the time or only studies all the time. So our time is distributed amongst all these three to develop this. Yes.
True. See, service is the quickest way to purify yourself because service brings humility. And that is the first virtue we are trying to develop. We are trying to purify ourselves not only bodily, not only in our actions, but mainly, most importantly, in our thoughts, in our
Hmm.
feelings. They have to be pure. So, service
Yes.
is the quickest way to purify yourself. When you bow down to someone, when you look after someone, then you are that humility comes into you. So, with that
Hmm.
purity, you move forward. And study, meditation, and service. So, study here is intellectual, but what you're striving for is to quieten this intellect so that you move beyond that mental intellect to the intelligence. That is
Hmm.
studying intellectually, it is the foundation, it is preparing the foundation. That will help to open up the intuition, the consciousness which is beyond the mental consciousness.
Nice. Sushma ji, would you like to add anything? Okay, so I think we can end, ma'am. Shall we finish?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. And let's all join together in the closing prayer. Thanking Vibha ji for giving her valuable time and Sushma ji for the wonderful translation. We're all grateful for your service. Asato ma satgame, tamaso ma jyotirgame, mrityorma amritam game. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you.